first story is titled, Am I the a-hole for firing my son? I'll get straight to the issue. My male 43, 17-year-old son Adam has been trying to become independent and preparing to move to college, but was struggling to find a job. I own a private warehouse as a side job to earn a living, so my wife suggested I hire my son to work at the warehouse. Moving boxes, bringing workers lunch, helping with cleaning, that kind of stuff. She said it is for both of our benefits, since he couldn't find a job and we needed to hire someone new. I agreed, and Adam was so happy and excited to start working. We agreed on a salary and work hours, so he still have time to study and practice. The first couple of weeks were going fine. That is, until one day. The workers were moving boxes, computers, into the warehouse. The client wanted them to be stored for a few days, and already arranged before they arrived. It was all written down, including the number of computers we stored. In the evening, while I was checking, I noticed there was one computer missing. I gathered all the workers except for Adam, and they had no idea and thought there was a mistake. I brought it up home, and Adam told me that he saw one of the workers putting a box in the garage to take home with him. I was confused, since he couldn't specify which worker it was. He eventually gave me a name and I went to talk to the worker. He denied it, and I ended up giving him X amount of time to bring back the box, and then I discussed why he did what he did. The worker is a single dad with 3 kids, and I've known him for a while, and I wanted to give him a chance. The next day I was busy. My daughter was in the hospital, and I got back to the warehouse at 8 p.m. and it occurred to me to check the cameras. What I saw was Adam putting a box in the back of his friend's car, and then the car left. I knew his friend, and knew Adam stole the computer. I went home and I confronted him. My wife sided with him when he denied it, and after arguing for hours, I fired him and told him he was lucky I didn't call the police. This was my responsibility. The client entrusted me with his computers, and Adam stole on the job. Adam started crying. My wife said it was wrong for firing him, that it was extreme and should have just took from his salary. She refused to drop it and tried to convince me to hire him again, but I refused. I apologized to my worker and I told him if there's anyone he knows who needs this job, I'll be more than happy to hire them. He brought his brother and he started working with us right away. Now, my family calling me an a-hole for hiring an outsider and not my son. Edit. The box was being kept at his friend's place. His friend is such a disrespectful a-hole, I won't be surprised if he was the one who came up with the idea. However, it was Adam who took it, and so he needed to be fired. This is not okay, nor is it acceptable. Now for the top comments. Wow, not the a-hole in this instance, but your family is terrible. Adam happily threw someone he viewed as a worker, and not a single father of 3, under the bus for his crime. Turn your son in to the cops. He is going to hurt more people if you don't. I would have voted everyone sucks here, but we're talking about the one instance, and not your parenting in general. It's unlikely, however, that you are completely blameless for your son's behavior. Your family sounds awful, and you had a hand in creating that. Edit based on OP's new info. Stop. This is not about your son's friend being such a disrespectful a-hole who you think probably came up with the idea. Even though you acknowledge that your son deserves to be fired for his actions, that overall thought process is enabling your son. 100% agree with you. In my opinion, it doesn't matter if he's his son. He's his employee and committed theft. That's a crime and should be reported to the authorities. Big not the a-hole. This is a serious offense, and if this happened with another boss, he might be sitting at a police office now. You're a good boss. I suggest showing your wife the video if she's taking his side. I can't imagine, but the police would have absolutely gotten involved if this was someone else and not me. I'm not tolerating his behavior. I know what he did was wrong, but I wanted to give him a warning to realize his mistake and learn from it. Not the a-hole. He stole from his place of employment and lied about it, and tried to get an innocent employee in trouble for it. If I had done that, I'd freaking expect to get fired. I think trying to get an innocent coworker fired for it was way worse than the stealing itself. That's disturbing, not the a-hole. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife to get over herself, or I'll go to my son's wedding without her? It's a bit of a complicated situation right now. My wife and I got married 13 years ago. I had a son from my previous marriage who was 15 at the time, and my wife had a daughter who was also 15. The kids were already older, and we never believed in pushing them to bond if they weren't interested in that. They had their own separate lives before we married, so there was no point in forcing them into something. I'm guessing you all know where this is going. 2 years ago, my son and stepdaughter, now both 28, sat us down and confessed they have been dating over a year. It was a bit strange for me hearing this, but I was respectful of their relationship, although it did take a while for it not to feel weird for me anymore. I did always consider my stepdaughter like my own and we're very close. My wife was upset at first, but she worked it out by believing they would break up eventually. Now that they announced they're engaged and plan to have a small wedding in a couple months, my wife is furious. All phone calls to her daughter have been my wife demanding they break up and keeps telling her it's not natural. This has upset them both, and my wife declared she's not going to their wedding. We had a huge fight because I couldn't believe she would refuse to go to her own daughter's wedding over this. It's not like this came out of nowhere. They have been in a serious relationship for years, so she's had time to get over whatever weirdness she feels about it. I finally told her that she needs to get over herself, and if she refuses to go, then I will simply go without her. She's now mad at me for not having her back on this, and acting like what she feels doesn't matter. My wife says she's allowed to not approve of their marriage, and as her husband, she thought I would have her full support on this, so she feels in a way betrayed that I'm not taking her feelings into consideration. But it's also my son's wedding, and I would never miss it. Things are very tense, and she's still telling me she's hurt by my actions, and that I would willingly go to something she's not comfortable with. I'd like to know if I'm being the a-hole for perhaps being too dismissive of my wife's feelings about this. I understand why she feels weird, but like I said, she's had time to get over it, so I don't know. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Offer to divorce her so the kids' relationship isn't weird anymore. My wife demanding they break up and keeps telling her it's not natural. This is the part that amuses me. It's not like they're biologically related, and they didn't grow up together, so there was likely never a sibling dynamic. If anything, when you put two horny and related teenagers together, things are probably going to happen. Not a a-hole. Yes, your wife is allowed to disapprove of this relationship, but it also means that you are allowed to approve of it. Same rules for everyone. She's projecting her behavior onto you. She doesn't care about your feelings and dismisses them since they don't agree with her. I don't fully understand the issues your wife has, to be honest. It's not natural. They aren't related in any way. They met when they were 15, old enough to make their own decisions. Even though they weren't pushed to be step-siblings, my wife and I still viewed them as our children. My son became closer to her and they had a friendly relationship before this. Same goes for my stepdaughter and I, but neither of them formed that type of familial bond with each other. To her, they're both her children, so that's why she finds it strange and unnatural. Next story. Am I the a-hole for lying in my therapy sessions because I knew my mom was eavesdropping? So I, female 18, live at home with my mom, dad, and siblings. With past events, I've started seeing my therapist again. My mom is kind of controlling and hates that she hasn't been able to sit in my doctor's visits/therapy sessions since I was 16. With that being said, me announcing I'm seeing my therapist again but through video calls, my mom has been trying to find ways to destroy my electronics, so I'm forced not to see a therapist. The last 2 months, I've noticed anything I mentioned in my therapy sessions, she would suddenly bring it up in conversations. For example, I talked to my therapist about being depressed and missing my best friend because I cannot function without her. She's not dead. I just haven't seen her in person since May last year. And in the middle of my dad and I talking about online games, she asked me if I was depressed and if I missed my best friend. Coincidence? Maybe. But in case that wasn't enough proof, here's another example. I was talking to my therapist about an old friend from camp finding me on social media and getting in contact with me. And that same day, my mom asks me if I've talked to any old friends from camp lately. I finally realized I wasn't overreacting, and she, in fact, was listening in on my sessions. So I told my therapist about my suspicions, and with her permission, during our last meet, I started spewing out as many sinful lies I could. Basically saying things like, I was having intercourse with multiple men from work, that I've been doing these. I said I thought I was pregnant and I didn't know who the father could be. You get the picture. The rest of the day, my mom was angry and throwing things around. Finally, during dinner, she broke and started calling me names and expressing how disappointed she was in me and how I've turned into such a disgusting person. I asked how she could have known, as I've only told my therapist, which forced her to come clean and listening in. Only after she admitted to it, I came clean about lying about the whole thing. My dad said I shouldn't have put her in such position to believe I'm doing any of which I said. My siblings agreed and said I could have just confronted her about eavesdropping. But confronting my mother would result in me being told I'm overreacting. Am I the a-hole for misleading her? I want to add a few things. I cannot move out because there's nowhere I can go and I'm flat broke, but I'm saving. There's nowhere else I can have the sessions but in my room, and I don't have any extra electronics to play because it's usually too loud, and any quieter would be useless. Not the a-hole. Lol. Kudos to the therapist for playing along. Hope she gave you advice on how to stop your mom listening in though. Hey Opie, I know you said you don't have anywhere else to go. I felt that way too, but there are options. Could you go outside and sit in a car? Or maybe you could go somewhere outside your home. If it's cold outside, that might not be ideal. But consider places you could walk to where there wouldn't be a lot of people. Definitely look into headphones and talk to your therapist about this. I've been where you are and it sucks, but it helps so much to find a different location. Edit. Opie, where is your dad in all this? And how does he feel about her eavesdropping? Can you get any support from him? Not the a-hole. Your mom is crossing major boundaries. Your dad is enabling her. I hope you can find a way to restore your therapy sessions properly. Not the a-hole. Can you set up the session where you have headphones to listen to your therapist, but you type your side so she doesn't hear? The last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to give my ex her mother's ashes? So I get the title sounds like an immediate yes, but hear me out. I grew up in a small town in New South Wales and met a girl we'll call Emily in primary school. We instantly became friends, and because of a rough home life, I was at her house constantly and her family became like a second family to me. I was there when her dad died and when her little sister Carol was born. I wasn't in the room, lol. I got on especially well with her mother Greta, since I never really had one. Toward the end of high school, me and Emily started dating and decided to get married when we were both 20. However, we soon found out that we wanted different things in life. Emily wanted to go out from our small town and make a name for herself, whereas I just wanted to live here, work, and have a simple life. We eventually decided to get divorced, and Emily moved away. I stayed friends with Greta and visited often, since she lived alone and we had a weekly family game night. However, Emily became more and more harder to contact, and didn't visit nearly as much as she said she was going to. Greta eventually got breast cancer and went through 2 rounds of chemo before dying from it. This went on for a year and a half and Emily visited 3 times. She lived 3 hours away, but still. When she died, I immediately tried calling her, and like usual, she ignored a call. Even answered once or twice just to hang up. Her sister had to break the news, and even then, she wouldn't answer. Until the 7th call, which she answered by screaming, "What?" I also want to point out, because I feel it's important, that there were no COVID travel restrictions at this time. Nothing was stopping her from coming. So we flew her down for the funeral and we all went to the ceremony. It was so hard for me, and I spent the whole time holding Carol as she was hysterical. I gave a eulogy and so did Carol, but had to stop halfway through because it was too much. We then went to hear the will get read. Greta left girls the home and its contents, which Emily agreed to just give to Carol. And I was surprised because Greta bought a used school bus off her uncle in Broken Hill and left it to me in the will, as I always talked about converting one into an RV. He had even driven it down for me and was at my house right now. Then came the big surprise. I was left Greta's ashes. Emily freaked out and said that it should go to her since I wasn't even part of the family. I disagreed, as I had been around way more than her and had helped Greta through her recovery as well as everything else. Carol took my side, and Emily stormed out. Me and Carol decided to spread her ashes in the river, which was her favorite place in town, as she walked along it with her dog. We told Emily, but she just went back to her house and refused to be part of it. We decided to wait for her, and told her that she has a year to change her mind, and we're just going to spread them after that. I'm pretty confident that I've done the right thing, but I have a bad feeling in my gut about it all. Am I the a-hole? Now, for the comments. Not the a-hole. She willed them to you. This was her wish. Absolutely this. It's as simple as that. No excuses. Not an a-hole. I was left Greta's ashes. That is literally all that matters. Not an a-hole. Yep, the only part of the story that matters. She bequeathed them to you for a reason. Not an a-hole. You were left the ashes because you were trusted to do what is best with them. If Emily doesn't come around, you might consider a memorial necklace for her, with a small portion of the ashes before spreading the rest. That's a good idea. Thanks. I'll look into it. And that's the end of this video, folks. As always, leave a comment and hit like and subscribe. And if you want more of this content, turn your notification on to get updated on the latest videos. And I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe.